So on the 7th of July, Uranus is going to enter the sign of Gemini. Okay, so it hasn't been in Gemini for 84 years. The most recent time that Uranus entered Gemini was in 1941. Okay, so it has an 84-year cycle. That's how long it takes to go through all 12 signs. So whatever house Uranus transits, it basically shakes up that house in an unexpected way or in a shocking way. And essentially, Uranus is only going to spend a few months in the sign of Gemini before it goes back into Taurus. All right, so basically we're looking at the 7th or the 8th of July, depending where you live in the world, until the 8th of November in 2025. Then it will re-enter Gemini again next year on the 26th of April, and it will be there until 2023. So first of all, Uranus rules over rebellion, shocks, sudden shocks, twists, turns. So basically sudden change, we can say. It also rules over innovation, science. It is considered to be the higher octave of Mercury, so it has the effect of providing us with sudden downloads or insights that come about spontaneously. And basically wherever Uranus goes, this is where we want to like rebel against what we've been doing or whatever that house rules over. I will just say quickly that Uranus is sextiling you in terms of the aspect that it is making, but it's only getting up to 1 degrees Gemini before it goes back into Taurus. So the Aries individuals who will actually feel that the sextile the most would be those between 0 and 1 degrees, or maybe even 2 or 3 degrees. So we're looking at the Aries individuals who were born in the first 3 to 5 or 6 days of Aries season. So it will revolutionize, whatever house it's in, so we can anticipate big changes here. So you're either on board or they're happening and you're like, I don't want this change. But Aries individuals are usually pretty open to change and adventure and seek that out in their lives anyway. So basically, we need to look at what the 3rd house rules over what the 3rd house rules in order to understand how this is going to play out as a transit. So the 3rd house rules over communications and writing. It rules over friends, especially small groups of friends. It rules over siblings and extended relatives, and it also rules over clients and co-workers. The 3rd house rules over our local neighborhood or our local community. It rules over short-term education, so things like course content, and it also rules over diplomas, qualifications, certifications, tests, exams, as well as things like projects, marketing, sales, websites, and social media, and so on and so forth. And Uranus itself is associated with social media and technology anyway, so there's a bit of overlap there. So with respect to communications and writing, while Uranus transits through Gemini, you may write or produce communications pieces such as podcasts, books, social media platforms or pages that are quite Uranian in nature, so maybe very advanced, very progressive, very avant-garde, or possibly quite shocking in nature, because Uranus has this quality of just, delivering shocking information or news without any kind of sugarcoating or cushioning. That's just Uranus's nature and its way. So perhaps you are producing communications pieces that are quite unconventional in nature, or flip the script from some kind of deeply entrenched narrative that is at play. So it can have this real whistleblower energy to it. So maybe you are writing an expose or putting together a documentary, and maybe you already had the idea for it. Then when Uranus is in Gemini, you're getting it done, or perhaps it'll come through while Uranus is in Gemini, and it could take you, the full 7 or 8 years to complete it. All right, so maybe getting all the way up to 2023, I don't know, depends. What I will say though is that Uranus is quite comfortable in the sign of Gemini because, like Uranus, Gemini is open-minded, it moves quick, it's quite sociable. You know, Uranus rules over large groups and communities, and Gemini rules over friends. So there's like this element of camaraderie and friendship. And you know, Uranus in Gemini is a brilliant transit for writers, content creators, people who want to build websites or apps or things like this. So you absolutely may have great ideas that come through and you can execute them pretty quickly. You may actually do a 180 or go in a surprising direction with a certain project or website you had been working on, and maybe this like takes you by surprise or other people by surprise. So for example, you could have said you were going to be working on one thing and then you're like, no, I've changed my point of view. I'm looking at this from the other angle. Or if you already have a business or social media page, you could actually just be like redirecting and completely changing focus. And businesses that are started during this time for you Aries individuals can go viral and become wildly successful, as is the nature of Uranus energy. Of course, you know, Uranus does incorporate twists and turns. So something you thought was going to be a huge success could turn out to not be the case. I understand that some of this information is contradictory, but hopefully you're getting a flavor for Uranian energy and how it is very unpredictable. There could be opportunities here for you to learn and to study that maybe just come up quite swiftly or come up out of the blue. And it's like, okay, you have to take this with both hands and act on it. Or, you know, you may not have this opportunity tomorrow, so you may have to make decisions and act very quickly when it comes to education or perhaps even collaborations or contracts. So there may be certain pressure to sign contracts quite quickly. Obviously, this is like an 8-year transit. So in terms of zooming out, let's not get lost in the weeds. What you can expect during this period of time are revolutionary ideas when it comes to business, communications pieces, social media movements, and so on and so forth. Totally new friendship group. Out with the old, in with the new. That doesn't mean that you can't hold on to old friends. It just means that, you know, you may be making friends quite quickly and other friendships may just like combust. Again, the energy of Uranus is that it happens quickly, swiftly, or unexpectedly. I personally have Venus exactly opposite my Uranus. So I've had friendships that have just like ended on the spot or just like never heard from someone again. So, you know, there could be a bit of that energy there for you guys, but just remember that Uranus is sextiling you. So this is a helpful, beneficial aspect. So you could be making friends with people in your local community, or you yourself could be forming together like a union at work or a group of people from your local community. So you could be banding together. Uranus going through your third house can indicate making friends with some unusual people, maybe quirky, maybe unconventional, maybe just weird, or other people would consider them to be weird and you're like, no, you're awesome. On a different note, maybe you're just like making friends with people that would seem unlikely, you know, so someone of like a totally different background or who has completely different views to you and you're like, no, we're besties. Anyway, with Uranus going through the third house, you can feel like your siblings are going a bit like loopy, a bit cuckoo, a bit weird. There could be some unusual like changes to the dynamic that you have with your siblings or relatives. Uranus going through the third house can indicate that it's on and off and hot and cold. On a different note, with clients, you could be building this community of clients and maybe creating some sort of membership for them to join. And, you know, in terms of your local neighborhood, Maybe it's becoming a smart city where everything's being digitalized, or perhaps your local neighborhood or your local community is really banding together and taking care of each other, which would be amazing to see. So some of you may become an educator yourself. Maybe this opportunity comes out of the blue, or you're putting together some kind of course content. You could be learning about astrology as well with Uranus going through the 3rd house. So astrology could very much be part of your daily life. Just to recap, Uranus will be entering Gemini on the 8th of July, and it will only be there till the 8th of November in 2025. Then it will re-enter Gemini on the 26th of April in 2026, where it will remain for like 8 years until 2033. Okay, so big changes to your friendship group, your relationships with your siblings and relatives and friends in general. You can start businesses, maybe multiple businesses that become quite successful. Maybe you're working on developing a new app or new website or a new product that you want to sell, and maybe starting a podcast, or producing communications content or material such as documentaries. Okay, so I hope that summary helps. Let's just see. If you're a rising, an Aries rising, all the above will apply to you, but it may not all play out. If you're an Aries sun, you may have a sudden change in career path and trajectory, which would, I expect, coincide with the sextile being very close to you in degree. Okay, so if you're like when Uranus is within 2 degrees or maybe 3 degrees of your sun sign. Okay, on a different note, you can achieve work quite quickly, quite swiftly, and because Uranus is going to be sextiling Saturn in Aries, you can be building something solid which is for the greater good, or which is geared towards community values, if that makes sense. If you're an Aries moon, there can be these changes in relationships with siblings and extended relatives and friends. Maybe the relationship moves in an unexpected direction, but again, this is sextiling you, which I see as a positive thing. It can indicate making new friends, making them quickly, but then also old friendships just falling by the wayside that happen quite abruptly or suddenly. On the 8th of July, Uranus is going to enter the sign of Gemini. So it's been about 84 years since Uranus last entered the sign of Gemini. So no big deal, except that it is a big deal. I'm just kidding. And basically Uranus is going to be in the sign of Gemini until the 8th of November. Okay, so we've got a few months here. Then it will go back into Taurus in your 1st house, and then it'll be in Gemini from the 26th of April in 2026 until 2033, actually. So the 2nd house rules over finances, resources, resource management, farming, agriculture. It also rules over the 5 senses and things like beauty, hair, makeup, jewelry, fashion, our wardrobe, the wine industry. And it's also a creative house as well. So singing, music, drawing, dancing. And the 2nd house is also a property house. So something to note is that the 2nd house is associated with Taurus, so you're naturally attuned to this energy as it is. Basically, Uranus will shake up, switch up, and revolutionize the house that it is in, so we can anticipate big changes here. So we're going to start to see these come through, between let's say July and early November. So what's that? August, September, October, November. So about 3 or 4 months. So because Uranus rules over your 10th house and it's going into the 2nd house, and the 10th house in astrology rules over career, you may actually be pursuing a career in these second house areas, so in something to do with finances, in something to do with resource management or farming or agriculture. Maybe you're looking at becoming a dentist, or getting into the wine industry or the beauty or fashion industry or the property market. Maybe something creative, or even becoming like a park ranger. All right, and because Gemini rules over social media, and Uranus is also associated with social media, perhaps you're just starting a social media page or website on one of those aforementioned areas. And the second house relates to your personal finances and income. So you could earn an income by pursuing one or more of those areas. So over the next 8 years, there will be big changes with respect to finances and resources. Now, obviously, you would expect that anyway, because 8 years is a long time. But when Uranus first enters a sign, in fact, when a planet first enters a sign for the first time, of that cycle, that first few months or that first year is when we really start to see the changes come through. And then we see more changes come through if it makes contact to a personal planet or a house cusp or our ascendant or something like this. So I digress. With finances, you may be coming up with exciting new ways to understand your finances and your resources, or to budget. There can be quite big fluctuations in your salary during this time, maybe big highs, maybe significant lows. There may be times where you don't know what the financial outcome of a situation is going to be. For example, maybe you are producing some course content and you're going to sell that, or sell tickets to a workshop or a retreat. And it's like, okay, this is what I could make, but it's dependent on getting bums on seats, as they say. So however many ticket sales you make, or however many people purchase your courses. So it can be like taking a risk or taking a bit of a gamble with your finances and your resources. But do remember that this entire time, Uranus will be trining Pluto in Aquarius. So this is very, very supportive of new financial ventures, new business ventures, and it will also be sextiling Neptune for pretty much its entire duration. Wait, let me double check that. Yeah, except for maybe 3 weeks. So Uranus is sextiling Pluto on one side, it's sextiling Neptune on the other side. So this is really, really supportive. And it's also going to be sextiling Saturn. And, that sextile will widen over time, but that'll be for about 2 to 2.5 years. On a different note, when it comes to expenses, there can be big expenses that feel like they come out of nowhere sometimes. Do watch what you may have to spend money on in July, once Uranus enters the sign of Gemini. But for others of you, there are times where you may be investing quite big into your career, or into elevating your public status somehow, or maybe even investing in property. Okay, so into the real estate market. With investments, there could be significant investments that you make or that you end up selling off. Uranus in Gemini in the second house is excellent for learning fast. So you may be learning how to trade, whether this is the stock market or crypto market, to trading, learning online, or learning independently, or perhaps some friends, relatives, or in small groups of people, as is denoted by the sign of Gemini. And when it comes to your possessions and valuables, there may be quite an eclectic mix here of the things that you like, which are maybe a bit weird, a bit different, again, a bit quirky, a bit eccentric. So you could be reinventing yourself when it comes to how you dress, hair, makeup, and how you present, and just the clothes you wear, and maybe even how you speak as well, because the second house rules over our voice and the throat chakra. And Gemini rules over communications. So how you express yourself could be undergoing a rapid change during this period of time. Because the second house is associated with farming, land, agriculture, as is Cancer, You can be learning all that you can about it, perhaps pursuing a career in this field, maybe working in a community, likely to be your local neighborhood, which is thanks to Gemini, and you may become well known for the work that you do in this area. Again, you could be educating yourself about property and real estate, and there could be opportunities to buy and sell property that come up quite quickly, or your status as in terms of property ownership could change, or even just property in general, whether you're buying, selling, an investor, renting. So sudden changes to property and real estate could be coming through while Uranus is in your second house. Okay, so you may be trying new and progressive things when it comes to your property and land. You could be known for your property or land that you own or that you live on. Okay, so there could be something ingenious about where you live and how you set up your home that captures the attention of your local community or your neighborhood in some way, shape, or form. The second house rules over your personal values, so these will be shifting quite dramatically over the course of this 8-year period. Your priorities will not be the same because because Uranus rules over your 10th house. This is indicative of you perhaps having different values when it comes to parenting. So parenting style, wanting to set a good example, maybe becoming more community minded. Maybe your priorities shift to wanting what's best for your community and your neighborhood rather than just, you yourself. And you could be far more focused on friendships, community, and also human rights. Because the second house rules over your throat, the voice, and the throat chakra, you are becoming unapologetic and unafraid to speak up and say the truth, even if it's shocking to other people. This is really about speaking the truth, and maybe the way that you talk will be quite fast-paced, which is perhaps a departure for you as a Taurus, unless you have, Mercury in Aquarius or Mercury in Aries or Mercury in Gemini. Maybe you're just going to be talking about astrology a lot because Uranus rules over astrology. The second house rules over self-love, how you nourish yourself in food. So your diet can change dramatically, and what you are indulging in. The second house rules over what we indulge in. So you could be cutting things out. Uranus cuts things out like overnight. So this could be certain foods, certain addictions, maybe smoking habit, cutting out porn, or just clearing out the social media pages that you follow, as is represented by Uranus in Gemini. So you could be focused on creativity, learning new skills very quickly, maybe digitalizing your creativity. For example, getting acquainted with digital art, uploading your music online, starting a Spotify account, or creating new apps yourself, or you could be using apps to pursue creative projects, passions, and hobbies of yours. Now, on the 8th of July, we are going to see Uranus entering Gemini for the first time in 84 years. So this is a really exciting transit, and it's going to last for 8 years until 2033. In saying that, though, it will spend a few months in Gemini, but then on the 8th of November, it is going to retrograde back into Taurus. Basically, whatever house Uranus transits, it's going to totally shake up and revolutionize that house. So we can experience big, big, big changes as Geminis that come through over the next 8 years. So the first house rules over the physical body, vitality, energy levels, how you present, walk, talk, dress, your aura, your path in life, and it does also affect your relationships as well. So Uranus is a planet which represents and rules over things that are like shocking in nature, so sudden change, shocks, twists, turns, rebellion. It also rules over communities and large groups of people, and it has a very progressive and innovative energy to it. All right. So in terms of your physical body, there can be some pretty extreme fluctuations here, whether this is weight gain, weight loss. You do have to be careful not to let's say, burn out your nervous system. So that is something that you are at risk of. Now, I can speak to this transit myself because I'm a Taurus sun. So Uranus has been transiting my sun sign since 2018. So I'm very attuned to this energy. But essentially, especially if you're a Gemini rising or Gemini moon, you do need to be mindful of keeping your emotions in check and keeping your nervous system regulated. If you're a Gemini sun, do be careful not to work your physical body too hard, especially when it comes to exercise, although the same could be said for Gemini risings. And in terms of vitality and energy levels, there can be quite big fluctuations here. So you do really have to be mindful not to burn out, especially when Uranus makes, squares and conjunctions to other planets. But there is also this huge potential to upgrade your vitality and your energy levels. And you can actually do this through listening to different frequencies and vibrations, as well as sound healing too. And you'll want to guard against EMFs. I would recommend that you don't keep modems or routers in your room, and maybe even turn them off at night if you can. For years now, I have not slept with my phone in my room. And, if you do sleep with devices in your room, I would be turning off Bluetooth and also putting them on flight mode. Okay, so how you present can definitely shift in a huge way. So you may find that you're walking and talking differently, maybe faster, maybe your pace is irregular, or you are coming off a little bit eccentric. You may be dressing or presenting in a way that kind of goes against the grain or goes against the norm. So maybe you're sort of rebelling against a cookie cutter kind of appearance and way of presenting, especially if you're a Gemini rising. And also, this is about starting trends but not following them. So you may notice that things that you do and that you say, your friends start copying you, or other people start copying you. And imitation is said to be the highest form of flattery, so you can just take it as a compliment. You could be influencing people around you in the way that you speak, dress, talk, act, and even your belief systems as well. Also, this can see you sounding more intelligent by increasing your vocabulary, or just being really aware of and across a multitude of different topics, because Uranus rules over randomness. And so Geminis are already, the hashtag fun fact people as it is, but to have Uranus in Gemini is like, upgrading your intelligence levels, allowing you to learn things more quickly, read books more quickly, have downloads of information that come through, creative ideas, business ideas, and be very effective in communicating these ideas to other people. Now, I say this because we will be bolstered by the fact that Uranus is going to be trining Pluto in Aquarius and also sextiling Neptune in Aries for a really long time. And for part of the transit, it will also be sextiling Saturn as well. So it's really beautiful to see, all the slower moving planets in these yang signs, in these masculine signs, because they're all in harmony together, which is really, really supportive. So when it comes to your aura, you may feel lighter and freer and be ridding yourself of dense energy or any stagnant or perhaps even toxic energy. You may develop the ability to see other people's auras, or perhaps feel and sense energy around you and that of other people. So you could be very tapped into your own energetic layers and layers of your aura, and even the chakra system as well. When it comes to your path in life, this can change radically. All right, so doorways and opportunities could be opening up to you seemingly out of nowhere or very, very quickly and unexpectedly. And it's like you have to strike while the iron's hot so that you don't miss out on this opportunity. So in terms of which house Uranus rules over, it rules over the 9th house. So there could be opportunities that come your way that are linked to or that involve travel, education, religion, politics, spirituality, or just connecting with people who are at such a high level in terms of their chosen profession or path in life, who have so much wisdom to share. And then, you know, this energy is being transferred onto you, and you're integrating this into your daily life and into your being, and it can really influence the path that you're on in a profound way, to be honest. So other people can be wondering, how are they manifesting these opportunities? How are they attracting these opportunities into their life? All right, so on a different note, old belief systems will be deprogrammed during this time. So, you know, old ways of seeing the world or beliefs around politics or spirituality or religion or anything to do with how you view the world and your concept of the bigger picture can start to fall away. And this can happen quite suddenly and be replaced with very progressive ideas, very eccentric ideas. You know, Geminis are going to be the front runners of a lot of this change. So we're going to be just sensing it come through. I think we will find that Geminis are going to be just at a whole new level of tapped into what's happening on a grand scale with world politics, with the pathway that certain communities and groups of people are headed in. And I mean, I could go on and on and on. I won't, but it's a very exciting time, especially for Geminis. So let's just see, yeah, what you believe before Uranus enters your sign can be wildly different to what you come to discover over the next 8 years. I'll give you an example as a Taurus sun. Uranus entered Taurus for the first time in 84 years back in May 2018. At that time, I only knew my sun sign. Let that sink in. I only knew that I was a Taurus sun. I didn't know about birth charts. I couldn't read them. I hadn't seen mine. I had never cast my birth chart at that point. Okay. But then, like, I just fully got into astrology over the years to come. And now here I am, and here you are watching my astrology reading. Same thing with the tarot. I'd always been curious and wanted a tarot reading. I'd had like a friend pull a fairy oracle card for me many moons ago, which I loved. But I'd never had a tarot reading. I didn't own my own deck of cards, and now I have like 20 or 30 decks. So yeah, it's crazy what you will find yourself exploring and being into with Uranus transiting your sign. You'll end up in such a different position to where you are now. This can also indicate radical changes to relationship status. So yeah, you can go through the whole gamut of experiences in terms of relationships, and your path will change so much over this time. But just know that Geminis are naturally attuned to the energy of Uranus. And I say this because Uranus is actually the higher octave of Mercury, the same way that Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. So Uranus is genius. Uranus is intelligence. Uranus is thinking outside the box. Okay, so this is what you can anticipate to be coming through. You'll have the most incredible downloads during this next 8-year period. So if you're a Gemini sun, there will be significant changes in your career, and perhaps unexpected developments in terms of career and your work. You can change jobs or industries, possibly multiple times. You know, as a Taurus sun with Uranus in Taurus, I went from working in real estate for 6 years to walking away from that job, starting my own business and becoming self-employed as an astrologer and a tarot reader. As a Gemini sun, your career will be very progressive. It may involve technology, sales, marketing, media, project management, IT, so working with information technology online, working online, social media, writing, communications, working in groups, and maybe community work as well. These are just a few ways that it can play out. Most Gemini suns have had very varied careers, and often they have multiple jobs at once. The same can be said for Gemini risings. And so you, as a Gemini sun, will be a powerful leader. This is what you are moving into. You're becoming this powerful leader because Uranus rules over the 9th house, and the 9th house represents this, you know, respectable figure, this guru, this keeper of knowledge. So this is what you're becoming, and you will be a mover and shaker over the next 8 years. As a Gemini moon, there can be big changes coming through to your property and living circumstances that are maybe swift, that are maybe unexpected, and big changes coming through to relationships, getting into relationships, coming out of relationships. I forgot to mention that, you know, Uranus transiting your sign can indicate becoming a parent. If that's the case, it will probably be unexpected, or it will probably happen quicker than you thought. Uranus rules over IVF, so some of you may be going down that route, and also this is indicative of maybe using a surrogate as an alternative, and also just community style living, getting really involved with your local neighborhood, your local community. As a Gemini rising, you know, this transit is super potent for you guys, so any of the above can apply to you. On the 7th or 8th of July, depending where you live in the world, Uranus is going to enter the sign of Gemini for the first time in 84 years. So this is a new 8-year cycle that is beginning, that will last until 2033. Having said that, Uranus will be in the sign of Gemini until November. So it's just a few months here until the 8th of November in 2025, at which point it'll go back into Taurus for a little bit. And then from the 26th of April, 2026, it's full steam ahead in Gemini till 2033. Wow, another big cycle. So Uranus transiting the 12th house indicates that 12th house themes will be at play here. So the 12th house rules over the subconscious self and these shadow elements. It also rules over unconditional love, healing, forgiveness, spirituality, as well as, you know, certain illnesses or mental health problems. And I mean, it's a bunch of stuff, right? So we've also got creativity, intuition, and psychic gifts and whatnot. So in terms of unpacking all of this, first of all, Uranus is a planet which rules over big changes, which are swift, often unexpected, and also it is associated with downloads of information coming through, genius as well, the genius factor, as it's a higher octave of Mercury, so it represents a high level of intelligence, but also it can represent people who are sort of like outcasts from society, where we buck trends and go the unconventional route. So ultimately, Uranus will revolutionize the house that it is in. So for you, this is the 12th house. So we can anticipate really big changes here. Also, I should mention that Uranus rules over your 8th house. So both the 8th house and the 12th house are associated with secrets, but they're deep emotional houses, and there is some overlap here when it comes to addictions and fears and insecurities and that kind of thing. I personally think that having Uranus transit the 12th house is going to liberate you from certain self-sabotaging behaviors. So this can see you being free from fears, insecurities, perhaps having a victim mindset, or even having certain addictions, because Uranus just like instantly removes things from our lives just like that without any effort. So I really think that many Cancerians are going to be letting go of fears and letting go of insecurities, and having perspective shifts, which is basically what Gemini rules over, which can be very liberating for you. So this can see you getting to the root cause of certain illnesses, which may have been something of a mystery for you, because the 12th house rules over illnesses that are especially hard to treat or diagnose or understand, and Uranus going through your 8th house can see this being cleared away from you. Now, the 12th house is representative of spending time in quiet solitude. So think, as far as the tarot is concerned, the Hermit energy, the Hanged Man energy. These are just like archetypal tarot cards. I have some here. I just cut the deck thinking, oh, imagine if I got the exact card. I did. Here we go. There's the Hermit. Okay, so it is recommended by me that you do actively seek out time spent by yourself. So this can be in meditation, with yoga, maybe attending certain retreats. And, you know, for others of you, you may do this for creative purposes or just to really focus on going inwards. On a different note, Uranus rules over large communities, and Gemini is the sign of friendship. The 12th house can, like I said, indicate spending time in quiet solitude, or in some cases isolation. So some of you may find that you're not participating in communities the way that you once were, or maybe certain friendships feel quite distant, or perhaps it feels like they're sort of fizzling out around this time. On a different note, when it comes to spirituality, intuition, and your psychic gifts, you may find that you are learning how to use these systems, these tools, these divinatory practices, and you may just have like sudden downloads of information where you just understand things, and you just have massive breakthrough moments, especially if you've sort of been trying to understand the tarot for a while, or you've been interested in astrology for a while, but then Uranus being in your 12th house just unlocks that on a totally new level, which, by the way, is what happened to me when Uranus entered the sign of Taurus. As a Gemini rising, that would put it in my 12th house in whole sign. And so I went from really only knowing my sun sign to just absorbing so much astrological information. And believe me when I tell you, I was living and breathing astrology every minute of every day. I would be like, you know, eating food, maybe just like walking around in shopping centers, listening to astrology videos, listening to them while I was brushing my teeth. And yeah, you can be really, really taken with some of these intuitive or divinatory practices, and have radical transformations because of it, like as a result of it. Okay, so you may be completely transformed by working with certain healers. And on a different note, if you're already working with these modalities or with these practices, maybe you're an astrologer, maybe you're a tarot reader, then you could actually go viral with content or work that you put out there, especially if it's online, given that Uranus and Gemini are both associated with social media technology and the online space. Maybe you're actually going to be working on developing an app, which is, or, you know, some sort of website which is related to astrology, tarot, something to do with spirituality and healing. The 12th house is associated with creativity, so this is a time where you can have huge breakthroughs, creatively speaking, when it comes to writing, music, poetry, film, photography, filmography, or even acting. What you create may be quite Uranian in nature, meaning maybe it's very progressive or advanced or shocking, or some people find it triggering. And for others of you, you could have ideas or concepts that you download when it comes to what to create. So these are like fully fledged ideas. Think J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter, you know, she had the whole vision in her mind. I think she might have Aquarius in her chart, actually. So others of you may have access to sacred texts, spiritual texts, hidden secrets and codes of the universe. And this could come about randomly or synchronistically, or you could be initiated in some way, shape, or form, especially because Uranus rules over the 8th house. It does need to be said that there may be really big financial expenses which take place during this period of time, which may come out of the blue. But, you know, that's obviously, this is an 8-year period, so it's just something to bear in mind. The 12th house rules over other realms and other dimensions, so you may have some really interesting dreams or have certain experiences with the chakra system, especially with the crown chakra when it comes to downloading knowledge from the universe. On the 7th or 8th of July, depending where you live in the world, Uranus is going to enter Gemini in your 11th house for the first time in 84 years. So it will be in your 11th house until the 8th of November in 2025, at which point Uranus is going to retrograde back into the sign of Taurus. So Uranus will only get up to 1 degrees Gemini before going back into Taurus. It will be sextiling you, but the Leos who will feel it the most would be those between 0 and 1 degrees, or maybe up to 5 degrees, which would take you through till about the first 6 days of Leo season if you are a Leo sun. So this will be kickstarting off an 8-year transit. So even though it's just a few months that it's in Gemini for 2025, come the 26th of April in 2026, Uranus will be in Gemini through till 2033. So you're getting an indicator, you're getting a preview into what you can expect. Now, I personally have been having Uranus transit my 11th house for a few years now. So, of course, I can speak to personal experience and advise you here. Before we begin, I will just say that the 11th house is Aquarius energy, and Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. If you can see that here, oops, not here, here. Okay, so basically what this means is that Uranus is happy in the 11th house. Uranus belongs in the 11th house. Uranus is naturally associated with and attuned to the energy of the 11th house. So I think it's going to be easier to navigate. Okay, so ultimately, Uranus is a planet which rules over shocking change, sudden twists and turns, anything that is unpredictable, weird, eccentric, but it also rules over big groups of big groups of people and communities, and it is very concerned with human rights and rebelling against the norm. Okay, so it's associated with rebellion and strikes and so on and so forth. It will revolutionize the house that it is transiting, so you can anticipate big changes with respect to your 11th house. So with your community and your wider network, this will be so different from where you started pre-Uranus in Gemini. I imagine many of you will have completely different friendship groups. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have you know, childhood friends or old friends, people that you regularly catch up with or liaise with in terms of like a big group. This is going to be shifting. Okay, some of you will walk away from certain friendships and you may even leave certain communities, but this will be so that you can enter into new communities. Now, just to correct myself, the third house is like your everyday comings and goings, but the 11th house is like your wider network, who you associate with, and this can see you gaining new friends, joining new communities, perhaps forming new communities. You could be introduced to new friends and new people by your significant other or by another friend, because Uranus rules over your 7th house. Some of you may end up finding love in your wider network or community, or perhaps online during this period of time. Because the 11th house is associated with human rights and activism, and Uranus is associated with that anyway, Uranus going through your 11th house can see you being very passionate and quite involved in some kind of human rights cause, and maybe you're joining a community that is focused on human rights or social justice issues and so on and so forth. The 11th house is also an astrology house, so this can see you getting really deep into astrology and embracing it, maybe starting your own astrology page or channel. The 11th house is associated with innovation and science, so this can be a hugely innovative, creative time for you, where you're coming up with new inventions or running experiments and exploring scientific concepts and methods for yourself, but in a way that challenges convention. And perhaps you will actually produce some inventions or innovate something new during this time that could go viral, as is the energy of Uranus. And again, this could challenge the norm. The 11th house rules over social media platforms, so you could be starting a podcast or collaborating with other people. The 11th house is a social house, which is connected to collaborations. So, you know, you may start uploading something online or develop an app. Like I said, maybe start a podcast or just write articles online. The 11th house is associated with our long-term goals and projects. This can see you setting some really lofty, out there, progressive goals. You may be really shifting in a huge way when it comes to what your long-term goals and dreams are. So these could change quite dramatically and quite radically over this 8-year period. And your long-term goals or projects that you're working on could be related to innovation, inventions, tech, science, as well as community values and human rights. Now, because Uranus rules over your 7th house, which represents your business partner or business partners, as well as your significant other, this can see you aligning your long-term goals together. When it comes to passive forms of income and residual forms of income, Uranus going through your 11th house can indicate that maybe you'll be generating these quite quickly, creating multiple streams of income. And the reason why I think it's going to be quite, I don't want to say easy to do, but where you can make a lot of money in a short period of time, is because Uranus will trine Pluto in Aquarius. And we're also going to have Neptune and Saturn both in Aries. So it'll be sextiling these planets. So all of the slower moving planets will be in signs that are supportive to Uranus in Gemini. Now, you can get investors to back you, maybe apply for some kind of Kickstarter program. And for others of you, there may be an unexpected opportunity that comes up in the way of a PhD program. And maybe you had no plans for this, or you have like a genius idea that you want to do your PhD on. Okay, if you're a Leo sun, this can indicate that there are, or rising, this can indicate that there are exciting opportunities that come out of the blue that relate to career growth, expansion, and collaborating with other people. If you're a Leo rising, There can be opportunities here for you to develop passive and residual forms of income, and your friendship group and community could be expanding or changing in a really big way. If you're a Leo moon, then your relationships with friends could be shifting, and this could be quite surprising, or you could make friends really quickly, or your activity and involvement in these communities that you're part of could fluctuate and ebb and flow. Okay, and there may be significant changes to friendships in general for you. Now, on the 7th or the 8th of July, depending where you live in the world, Uranus is going to enter the sign of Gemini in your 10th house. And we haven't had Uranus transit Gemini for about 84 years. That's the last time Uranus entered Gemini. So this transit will last for about 8 years until 2033. In saying that, it's only going to be in Gemini for a few months in 2025. So that's about the 7th or the 8th of July until the 8th of November. Then it will re-enter Gemini again on the 26th of April in 2026. So it will only get up to 1 degrees this year in 2025. So that means that the Virgos who will be the most affected would be those at 0 and 1 degrees, maybe even 2 or 3 or 4 degrees. If you're a Virgo sun, we're looking at those of you who were born in about the first 5 days of Virgo season. In any case, Uranus rules over shocking, sudden change, twists, turns, going against the grain, anything unconventional in nature. It's also associated with innovation and science, astrology, even information technology and AI, robotics. I could go on, but I won't. So basically the 10th house rules over statuses of all kinds, especially if you're Virgo rising. So Uranus going through your 10th house can indicate that your career status could be shifting, okay? Especially if you're a Virgo rising or a Virgo sun, less degree Virgo moon. So there can be huge changes in career in terms of taking risks. Maybe you will be, over the course of the next 8 years, branching out into a career that is Uranian in nature, such as one that involves technology, information, IT, large groups and communities, astrology, anything to do with online activities, social media, maybe developing apps, podcasts, and so on and so forth. Perhaps something to do with human rights, anything that's kind of on the fringe. And also this is a transit for actually setting trends and starting trends, and then people just follow them. Anyway, so what you create in terms of work, your career could go quite viral in nature. This can see your career really taking off at the speed of light, or perhaps exciting opportunities come through that maybe you feel a little bit underprepared for or unprepared for. Like maybe it's a good opportunity, but you're like, oh, it's too soon. I'm like 5 years away from this, and Uranus is like, no, it's here now. Okay, so this could indicate perhaps gravitating towards a career which involves AI, engineering, robotics. In terms of employment status, again, the 10th house rules over status of all kinds. This can shift, okay? So you can go from being employed to not employed, or like one day you're unemployed, and it's like the next day, hey, you have a job, you have to start in 24 hours. Some of you may end up going into retirement early. Some of you who are retired may come out of retirement early. So there can be some unexpected changes that come through in terms of career and employment status. Now, as I said, it rules over statuses of all kinds. So Uranus rules over your 6th house, and this is associated with debts. So there may be debts that you incur suddenly, but by the same token, you may have outstanding debts or fines, and they're suddenly deleted or just, waived, removed, and you don't have to pay them. You may be able to take out a loan quite quickly that you need, especially if it's for work, or starting a business, and you could actually repay this quite quickly as well. I would say just be careful when it comes to not incurring like big fines or tax money. So that could come through as a bit of a shock. That happened to me. I was quite late with paying my taxes, and by the time I looked at it, the figure was like anyway, I digress. So the 10th house can also indicate changes to your relationship status, marital status. So during this period of time, you may enter into a relationship or come out of a relationship. Because of the nature of Uranus, this could be like everything happens really quickly. Like you meet someone and then all of a sudden, like you're together, you're moving in together, you're having a baby or getting married. For others of you, there may be relationships that end. And because Uranus is going to be making very, let's say, positive and harmonious aspects to Saturn and Neptune, as well as Pluto, I think that these like big relationship shifts will be something that you're able to navigate with ease, or perhaps with support, or maybe the transition is just quicker than you would have thought. Now, on a different note, this can indicate a shift in terms of property ownership status and living circumstances as well. So some of you may be like buying, selling, relocating, especially if you're a Virgo moon or a Virgo rising, less so Virgo sun. If your relocation or your, let's say, buying of a property or selling of a property is basically being ushered through with this Uranus transit, I would anticipate it to be swift, unexpected, or things happen quickly at short notice. So for example, a change of location, like buying or selling or just even rental market, could be motivated by unexpected life circumstances, such as having to relocate to a bigger property because your family is expanding, or having to relocate or buy or sell because of an exciting work opportunity that comes out of the blue. And maybe that's across the country or perhaps international, doesn't have to be, but whatever it is, it could just require you to change your plans for your property and living circumstances. Some of you may have to sell because you need that money for something else, and you just like need it quickly. You need to reinvest that money, and that's where the cash is going to come from. Others of you who are renting may need to move because the owners are like, look, we want to move back into this property, or we need to sell. Okay, on a different note, when it comes to the people you share your place with, someone could move out unexpectedly or move in unexpectedly. Because Uranus rules over community and Gemini rules over local neighborhood, you may end up in some kind of community style living, maybe like a commune, or just like sharing a lot of things with other people, or perhaps sharing your space or part of your home with friends or siblings, co-workers, neighbors, etc. Again, the 10th house covers all kinds of different statuses, so your parental status could change. This could be getting pregnant, expecting another child, maybe it's unplanned, or perhaps you just got pregnant way sooner than you thought. This would be more so the case for Virgo rising or Virgo moon. If you're a Virgo sun, this may be your partner who gets pregnant. On a different note, the parental status can change by other means. Perhaps you will be fostering children or going through the adoptive process or even the IVF process during this period of time. Your parental role could also change. And again, just remember the buzzwords for Uranus. It's like unexpected, sudden, or something that you didn't see coming. Sometimes it can be an exciting opportunity though, but it just feels like it's premature, or there's like not a lot of time to prepare. So There could be some big changes when it comes to the responsibilities that you have for your parents or for your grandparents. So you could be taking on some of their tasks or duties due to a shift in circumstances. On a different note, maybe you're going to become a grandparent. And if this is the case, I feel like this would maybe be earlier than you thought. Or maybe your child is having a baby and you were like, I thought you didn't want kids. Or for others of you, maybe your child told you that they couldn't have children, and then all of a sudden, they're letting you know that they're expecting. Okay, also changes to legal government status could shift very quickly. So this could be like citizenship, permanent residency. What's the other one? Visas. Okay, so the square to Uranus could be like, oh, the opportunities come up really quickly. Quick, get documents together, get all the paperwork together. Like, we've got to shift things, especially if you've got a new job that you'll be starting overseas. For others of you, this could be a legal government status change that comes through via, let's say, change to government policy. Okay, so if you're a Virgo rising, just remember, any of this stuff can apply to you. Virgo sun focus would be sudden changes to your work and career path, maybe quitting unexpectedly, your boss may leave unexpectedly, your workplace or company could undergo a series of unexpected changes or just changes that you were not made aware of. You could be changing industry. You could be starting your own business. You could be entering into one of those Uranian style careers, which I've already mentioned. You could retire or re-enter the workforce, and perhaps your life goals and sole purpose is like revealed to you. You have a download about this, but others could find this to be very shocking. And they're like, are you sure you want to be an astrologer? You've been an accountant for 10 years. I don't know. Okay, so Virgo moon, this is more about changes when it comes to property and living circumstances, buying, selling, relocating, having to adjust or adapt to a new set of living circumstances or a new way of living, a new way of being. Again, Virgo moon, this could be surprise pregnancy, or something about your pregnancy could be surprising to you. For example, maybe you're like, oh, I'm having twins, and you weren't expecting it. This is a funny story. Still don't have time for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I guess maybe it's not funny. Anyway, this girl that I know had like a gender reveal party, and she had, I think it was a cake. And anyway, cut the cake, pink, oh, we're having a girl, blah, blah, I've already got a son. But the person making the cake accidentally put the wrong color in, and this girl's sister clocked it because she had seen the slip and like given it to the woman baking the cake. So then after the fact, this girl had to post on her social media being like, oopsie, like, got it wrong. Turns out like we're having another boy. I'm sure she had a Uranus transit. In fact, she was an Aquarius. Just saying. Anyway, so there could be sudden changes to your personal relationships as a Virgo moon or a Virgo rising, maybe entering into them quickly, coming out of them quickly, or it's like who you're with is shocking to other people, or how quickly you're moving and progressing in this relationship could be surprising to other people. And then on the 7th of July, we have another exciting astrological transit taking place. Uranus will be entering Gemini for the first time in 84 years. So it will be entering into your 9th house, and it will be there until the 8th of November, at which point it will retrograde back into the sign of Taurus. In 2025, Uranus will only get up to 1 degree before it retrogrades back. So the Libras who will feel this the most would be certainly those at 0 and 1 degrees Libra, but even up to about 3 degrees, which would mean Libra suns who were born in the first 4 days of Libra season. So First of all, Uranus will be trining you from the ninth house. Okay, so this is a beneficial, harmonious aspect. It's very exciting to have Pluto trining you and Uranus trining you, because this is going to make things in your life just move faster and seem easier. And it can be a time where you're having lots of creative downloads as well. So the ninth house rules over education and travel. And in terms of Uranus and its energy, it's very rebellious, it's very unconventional, it moves quickly, sporadically, and unpredictably, and it can indicate shocking change. So in my experience with having Uranus in my ninth house from my moon sign, I mean, my life has changed so radically, but it's really about your vision for your life as well. So we'll get to education in a moment. The ninth house is about zooming out, seeing the bigger picture. It rules over your belief systems as well. So Uranus trining your ninth house, Uranus transiting your ninth house and trining you can indicate that you're experiencing this strong desire to change your life, to move in a new direction, and perhaps your vision for your life and what you wanted and what direction you thought you were going in could drastically change over the course of this 8-year-long transit. Okay, so you may find that you even surprise yourself by the things you want to do and explore, the places you want to go, what you end up believing, because your belief systems will radically change during this time. And that can be spiritual, that can be religious, that can be political as well. So when it comes to education though, it does rule over higher education. But again, Uranus is quite unconventional. So this can indicate that if you are in some kind of college or university program, completing some kind of college or university degree, or in an honors or master's program, there could be sudden changes here. So perhaps you are changing your mind about where you want to study, what you want to study. Some of you could just suddenly decide to quit your studies altogether, but for others of you, you could be unexpectedly invited to complete some kind of degree or course, and perhaps you'll be accepted into a program, and this could be really quite surprising for you that you made it, not because Libras aren't smart, very, very smart people, but it's more like, oh, I didn't think that I would be accepted, or I've just been offered this education opportunity. Maybe it's once in a lifetime, but it's out of the blue. So on a different note, teachers can change. So tutors, supervisors, lecturers, professors, and this could be something that you are quite surprised by, especially if you're doing a master's program and it's like, oh, but you're my supervisor. And so that could just take you by surprise. On a different note with this transit, this could indicate that you're learning something deeply, but very, very quickly, okay? Because the ninth house is about being an expert and mastery. And this is why it rules over teachers, because to be a teacher, you have to know your subject inside and out. So Uranus transiting your ninth house can indicate that you can become an expert in something in very little time, because Uranus does things quickly, and Gemini is about learning. So Uranus and Gemini is like you're learning something really, really quickly. Or you could be picking up a new language with ease. That's another way that this could play out. Or you could be just having a sudden download of information about intuitively what you need to study, what course you need to do, or what you need to pursue when it comes to your higher learning. Now, as I said, the ninth house does rule over belief systems. So again, this is a long transit, but Uranus going through your ninth house could indicate that your belief systems, which are religious, spiritual, global, political, philosophical, could be changing in a really extreme way. And you know, this could take other people by surprise, especially if you used to be quite conservative in nature, or maybe you were an atheist and now you are, you know, like super spiritual, or maybe you are converting a religion to a certain religion, or abandoning, shouldn't say abandoning, there's no shame here. Maybe you're walking away from a religious faith that you were a very devout follower of. And again, this could be something that you're like, no, my heart of hearts, this is right. But other people like, I've never known you to not be religious, or I've never known you to not hold this political opinion or these beliefs. And now you're just like shocking people with this whole new set of belief systems that you have. Okay, so what's great about this transit is that it's trining you, but also you can be suddenly free of negative belief systems, a pessimistic mindset, any kind of religious dogma, or, you know, very, let's say, dogmatic beliefs that you were raised with. You can just deprogram these and suddenly just see things with a fresh set of eyes, especially if this is something that you've been trying to let's say overcome for a while. Overcome, it's not really the word I want to use. It's more like, you know, I was raised with this set of beliefs, you know, they were very ingrained in me, and objectively I don't subscribe to these beliefs, but instinctively I can't help but act them out. And so, you know, with this transit, you can just like have that all fall away if that's what you wish. Now, on a different note, the 9th house rules over import and export as well as publishing. And you've got Uranus ruling over your 5th house. So if you own your own business, you know, whatever it is that you offer or create could be in high demand. Maybe your work is being published and circulated. If you sell products, maybe you are being requested to import these interstate or even internationally. With publishing, an opportunity could come up out of the blue. It could all happen very quickly. Or perhaps you are publishing something that is shocking in nature, and this could create huge waves and be quite scandalous. But, you know, Uranus can set trends, so this could actually go viral. Now, on a different note, because Uranus rules over the 5th house and it's going into the 9th house, this could be starting your own business in publishing, in import and export, in politics, perhaps, you know, the legal system as well. Of course, you know, you may have to have a degree for this, but perhaps you're opening your own practice. As an example, maybe you're already a lawyer and you're like, okay, I'm going to open up my own firm. On a different note, you can come into contact with teachers who are very strange, okay, because Uranus is very quirky. So Uranus going through the 9th house is like, you could be in touch with mentors or teachers who are just total weirdos, super rebellious, very unconventional, but incredible, you know, in terms of like they're at a genius level of intelligence. You yourself could become a teacher, mentor, guide. All right, so you could be working in the in education, and it could be that you're starting your own business. So I mean, some of you could start your own school. That would be a select few of you, but this could be more like, I have something to teach and I'm starting my own business, and now I'm offering my teachings to students and so on and so forth. Travel can come up spontaneously. The 9th house is related to travel. So there could be trips that come up out of the blue, or the decisions that you make to travel are made like very quickly, or it's like, you know, you have to fly by the seat of your pants. You could have travel plans go awry during this time, but, you know, you could also have very random but serendipitous travel experiences. Now, on a different note, the 9th house is one of the legal houses in astrology. So Uranus going into your 9th house on one hand could help you resolve legal matters quite quickly. But on the other hand, they could come up unexpectedly and you're like, why is this a problem? You know, why am I being contacted about this legal matter? So there could be some unexpected legal things that you're just like, why is this happening to me? Just know that Uranus is making really harmonious, positive aspects to Pluto and Neptune and Saturn. So I think that it won't be, it's not like a transit to like worry about like, oh my God, Uranus through the 9th house. Like it's still trining you. This is very, very positive for you. Now, ruler of the 5th house and the 9th house, this could indicate love with a foreigner. Okay, so maybe falling in love while you're traveling or while they're traveling. Maybe falling in love with someone who you meet through the education system. And on a different note, what this could mean is that your child could get pregnant and it may be unexpected. You may feel that it's very quick or very premature. Maybe you had no idea, or something about them having children you find to be surprising. Maybe it's the partner that they're with, or it could be that they told you they never wanted to have kids and here they are being like, Mom, Dad, you're gonna be a grandparent. Anyway, so on a different note though, it could just be that they're making decisions in their dating life and maybe you are finding this to be quite surprising or a little bit shocking, or they could get into a relationship very, very quickly. Okay, so if you're a Libra sun or rising, anything that I've said that relates to business, future prospects, your education, your vision for your future, owning your own business, you know, import, export, publications, blah, 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 that can very well pertain to you. And I feel like there was something else I wanted to mention. Oh, legal matters as well. If you're a Libra sun, if you're a Libra moon or rising, anything that I've said that relates to, you know, your love life, family, children, as well as property and living circumstances could relate to you, which actually brings me to something that I forgot to say, and that is that when you have Uranus trine your moon sign or your rising sign, this can be a time where you actually relocate interstate or internationally. Doesn't have to be interstate or internationally, but I would say it's more likely to be than not. And also having to move or relocate could just come about really, really quickly. So it's like, you know, you make a snap decision, or perhaps where you move to could be quite surprising to other people and they're like, oh, I didn't think you would move there. As an example, I've been having Uranus in Taurus trine my moon sign in Virgo, and during this time I did relocate interstate, and it was a very big move. It was a very big deal. I think I might have mentioned this already, but also I am a Taurus, so Uranus has been in my sun sign, so there's also that. On the 7th or 8th of July, depending where you live in the world, Uranus is going to enter the sign of Gemini for the first time in 84 years. So Uranus will be in Gemini until the 8th of November, at which point it will retrograde back into Taurus, but then it'll re-enter Gemini in April of 2026. And this is an 8-year-long transit. So in 2025, Uranus will only transit the degrees of 0 through to 1 degrees. Now, Uranus in your 8th house is not making a major aspect to you. This is an inconjunction. This is also known as a quincunx. Okay, so in any case, Uranus will totally change and shake up the house that it transits, so you can anticipate big changes here in this department. Uranus is a planet of shocks, twists, turns, rebellion, sudden change, as well as innovation, and it is the higher octave of Mercury, so it's kind of like the genius planet, but it also reveals the truth. Jupiter is also associated with the truth, but Uranus can be like the shocking truth kind of thing. So your 8th house rules over your mutual resources of all kinds. It's a house of healing, transformation, hidden fears, intimacy, sex, And it is also associated with really deep research. Now, I do want to say that Uranus will fortunately be making positive aspects to these other slower moving outer planets basically the whole time. Uranus will sextile Saturn and Neptune in Aries for a while, and Uranus will trine Pluto in Aquarius for a while. So we've got all 4 planets in air signs and fire signs, which means that they're working in harmony together. They like being, in these yang signs, okay? So ultimately, this is helpful energy and it is good to know. So Uranus going through your 8th house can indicate that there are big changes that come through at some point during this 8-year period, and they can relate to mutual resources, meaning shared bank accounts, shared investments, opportunities that come up to earn money through other people, anything that relates to child support, child custody arrangements, alimony money, and spousal support. Okay, so if you have existing arrangements, these may fluctuate during this period of time. If you don't, then this is something that may end up coming through during this 8-year-long transit. So when it comes to inheritances, there could be surprises here, and it could go either way. Maybe this is in terms of what you receive, and maybe this is less than what you thought. But in some instances, this could be you weren't expecting anything, or you got more than what you thought, especially because Uranus will be trining Pluto, at least by air element sign, the entire time. And Pluto rules over mutual resources and inheritances as well. Or for some of you, maybe in your own will, you are making decisions that other people would find shocking or contentious, and this could indicate that you are maybe cutting someone out of your will and they're not expecting it, or you are leaving it all to charity, or a large portion of it to charity, or maybe you are leaving something in your will to a person that other people will find quite surprising. Now, like I said, the 8th house rules over fears and insecurities as well as addictions. So this can see you quitting things cold turkey. Just don't like the taste anymore. Goodbye. This is an amazing transit for overcoming addictions, for letting go of any habits or vices that you're not a fan of. And it can also see you being free of certain fears and insecurities, and really overcoming these without effort. It just spontaneously leaves you one day. The 8th house is associated with secrets. It is a hidden house in astrology. So truths can definitely be revealed during this period of time, and they might be quite surprising to you. Uranus rules over your 4th house. So this could be to do with your family or your children, your ancestry or lineage. Maybe you're just discovering documents or things in your house that someone had tried to hide, or it could even just be the old diary of your late grandmother or something of this nature. I'm just giving you a random example. With certain truths being revealed, you can feel like your intuition is really vindicated here, okay? On a different note, you may find that you just have to roll with the punches, and there can be unexpected twists and turns that come up. If you're a Scorpio sun, maybe this is things that come up with work and you have to adapt, change job. Maybe an exciting new opportunity comes up, but you've just signed a contract with someone else and you're like, oh no, now I have to ditch this person, but I can't let this go. Or if you are a Scorpio moon, this could relate to your property and living circumstances. Maybe you were like, I love this house. I plan to die in this house. And then you find a house that's amazing and you're like, I want to move here. Or maybe you decide that you want to relocate interstate or abroad. Or maybe your partner or your spouse gets a job opportunity, and again, it's too good to turn down. And so it's like, okay, I guess we're moving overseas, or I guess we're moving to this place. So if you're a Scorpio rising, again, no distinction, as you know, or you should know by now. The 8th house is related to healing, psychologists, psychiatrists, hypnotherapists, and so on and so forth. So this can see you experimenting with new healing modalities, experiencing radical transformations, or exploring healing via spiritual, esoteric, and occult means. I've had a couple of hypnotherapy appointments or sessions in my life with 2 different people, and at the time I really felt like, nothing really changed or nothing really happened. But after the first one, my whole life completely changed from there, and I was the driving force behind it. So I feel like it definitely dislodged certain things within me and helped me to see different possibilities and realities that were not previously, it's not that they weren't available to me, but I just I couldn't see them. So anyway, just randomly felt like sharing that. This can indicate that you may be working with a psychologist, a psychiatrist, rebalancing your chakra system, maybe cleansing it out. Some of you may experience something of a Kundalini awakening or like a spiritual awakening. With intimacy, new sexual relationships can begin, and this could be with someone who's unexpected, or the sexual encounter could be really out of the blue, or it could be that your sex life feels like sometimes it's on and sometimes it's off. Of course, this is an 8-year-long transit, so just take it as it resonates. Many of you will be doing a lot of deep research and can happen upon some amazing discoveries through just being detectives. So if you're a Scorpio sun, like I've already said, there can be changes when it comes to your career, which just happen out of the blue, and you just have to adapt and adjust and roll with the punches. There can be changes to your mutual resources, especially as it relates to any kind of business partnership that you have, or money that you earn through someone else. And also you may be feeling emotionally a bit insecure about your work or about your job security. Your work premises could change unexpectedly if you're a Scorpio sun. Again, if you're a rising, no distinction. If you're a Scorpio sun, your ability to work flexibly, remotely, or just, your breakdown of hours worked at home, hours worked in the office could change very abruptly. Or perhaps your family life is impacting your career choices and your career opportunities. So some of you may discover some kind of secret, hidden, buried truth about your boss or your workplace. And, on a larger scale, this could be like industry lies. If you're a Scorpio moon or rising, there can be some big changes in your relationships, especially with family, parents, children, and your significant other, because Uranus rules over your 4th house. There can be a sudden change of living circumstances, people moving in, people moving out during this time, sudden change of living address prompted by you or circumstances outside of your control. Big emotional ups and downs with Uranus being in the 8th house, but ultimately excellent for an emotional purge, release, overcoming fears, overcoming blockages, and overcoming intimacy issues or even issues in your sex life. And ultimately, it will release any kind of stagnant energy. Okay, so that's Uranus in Gemini. Again, this is an 8-year-long transit. You won't experience all of this like immediately. You won't even experience all of this. These can just be certain themes that Uranus brings up. But I also want to reiterate that Uranus is making harmonious, positive aspects to these slower moving planets, which will undoubtedly soften the energy of this transit and make it much, much easier to handle. Now, on the 7th or 8th of July, depending where you live in the world, Uranus is going to enter the sign of Gemini for the first time in 84 years. So Uranus will transit your 7th house for about 3 months, and then it will go back into the sign of Taurus, but it will re-enter Gemini once more in late April of 2026. And this is approximately an 8-year-long transit. So Uranus will be opposing you in Gemini. And in 2025, it will only get up to 1 degree. So basically the Sagittarians who will feel it the most will be those between 0 and about 4, if not 5 degrees. So that would be Sagittarius suns born in the first 5 or 6 days of Sagittarius season. So whenever Uranus enters a house, we can be sure that it is going to totally transform and revolutionize that particular house. So there can be lots of unexpected changes and twists and turns when Uranus transits a house. During this time, you may find that relationships are sometimes on, they're sometimes off. So, you could be in contact with someone very frequently for a while and then go for a few weeks or months or even a year or two or more of not being in contact, and then one day Uranus can just sort of like switch things back online. So with Uranus transiting your 7th house, first of all, we need to understand what the 7th house represents in astrology. So it rules over relationships of all kinds, romantic, marriage, business, friendships, client relationships, and so on and so forth. And Uranus as an energy, it acts very quickly, suddenly, unpredictably. Things can happen out of the blue, sometimes good, sometimes bad. Uranus just has this unpredictable quality to it, but it's also very unconventional and quirky in nature and kind of fun. I like it. I like Uranian energy, but then again, my Venus is exactly opposite Uranus to the degree. So anyway, with this transit, you do want to look at when Uranus is exactly opposite your rising sun and or moon sign, okay? Because this is when you will experience these big ups and downs or changes. It's not really going to be if, you're right at the end of Sagittarius season and, Uranus is like 25 degrees away from you. No, it's going to be like maybe at the start, like whenever a planet first enters a sign, this is when, we do see changes come through. But in terms of specific changes in your life taking place, they're more so going to be when Uranus is exactly opposite. Anyway, I digress. So if you are single, this can indicate chance meetings, meeting someone really out of the blue, maybe love at first sight, maybe, just knowing that this is your person, because Uranus can give you like massive downloads, and sometimes they can be quite shocking, especially, if you're meeting someone for the first time or you haven't even spoken to them and you see them and you're like, I'm going to marry her, like that can be quite a shocking experience for you, even if you are falling in love, because then it's like, oh, now my whole life's going to change. Now I have to pursue this person. Just as an example, with Uranus in your 7th house, this can indicate taking a relationship or romantic connection to the next level very, very quickly. And maybe it happens in a very unpredictable way. You're on your 3rd date and then all of a sudden the two of you are talking about like moving in together or getting married. Just as an example, who you meet and who you end up with, if it's associated with this transit, could be very Uranian in nature. What does that mean? Well, they could be an Aquarius sun, moon, or rising, or Uranus could be very, very strong in their chart. For example, Uranus could be conjunct their moon or their sun or their rising sign. This person could be kind of quirky, kind of strange, quite rebellious, very intelligent, very nonconformist. Maybe who you end up with is quite shocking to other people somehow. With the ruler of the 3rd house being in your 7th house, you could meet them online in your local neighborhood. Maybe it's a friend, and maybe you're like, oh my God, I'm in love with my friend. Like, what? You are like a brother to me, as an example. It could be someone from your childhood, someone from school, maybe a coworker, maybe a client. Okay, so the nature of a relationship can change very quickly and unexpectedly. And this is whether you're single or already in a relationship. So Uranus is making harmonious aspects to Neptune and Pluto the entire time that it is in Gemini. So it's sextiling Neptune and it's trining Pluto, which is very, very positive, especially for you with your relationships and romantic connections, like all kinds of relationships actually. But again, Uranus still can have that energy of relationship going in a direction which is like unpredictable or unexpected. So, yes, this can be a transit where separations occur, or, maybe you get divorced. But by the same token, this can be a transit where you do get into a relationship and maybe it happens quickly. Maybe you get engaged, maybe you get married. Some of you may elope with this particular transit, or you get married and it's like a really short turnover period and it's just like quite spontaneous. And by the way, you could end a relationship and start a new one very, very quickly. All right, that's another way that this could play out. If you're in a committed relationship, you and your significant other or your spouse may go into business together. You may sign important contracts together because Uranus rules over your third house. But it's done quickly. These opportunities come up out of the blue very suddenly. You've got to capitalize on them quick, smart. So yeah, maybe you have to make snap decisions. Also, Uranus rules over your third house, and the third house rules over siblings as well as extended relatives such as cousins, aunties, uncles, etc., etc. So Uranus here can indicate that these relationships can be on and off, maybe like a tap. And on a different note, your seventh house does represent your significant other, and it also represents your second-born child. So with your second-born child, well, they could become very independent with this transit. Yes, they could go through a radical transformation. They could become quite rebellious. Maybe they have certain fringe beliefs with this particular transit. They could just be making decisions in their life that to you seem quite shocking or unexpected. And even if they're not like, they don't have to be things that you disagree with, but you could just be like, you're getting married very quickly, or like you haven't known this person very long and you're already moving in, or, you haven't known this person very long and you're already starting a family or buying property together or whatever. So there could just be certain decisions that they make and you're just like, whoa, you're changing your mind like left and right, and so on and so forth. So on a different note, when it comes to your significant other, if you're in a relationship, they could get pregnant, could happen fast, could happen through IVF. Uranus rules over IVF. On a different level, your partner could become quite Uranian in nature, so quirky, rebellious, but also working with communities, bit of a trendsetter. They could go viral or have huge success on social media. They could be making decisions that you consider to be quite out of pocket or unusual, or perhaps they're making suggestions which to you seem left of field about what direction to take your relationship in. And that could even be like, hey, should we start a business together? Or like, hey, let's just get married now, or let's relocate, or what have you. Obviously, insert blank as it occurs in your life. You can let me know in the comments below. So the seventh house rules over clients, sales, and contracts. New clients can come up out of nowhere, but there can be shock fallings outs, making that term up, with clients where it's just like, I thought everything was solid, or I thought this deal was going ahead, and then all of a sudden they just drop out. Sales and contracts can be signed very quickly. Sometimes this can happen with incredible speed and ease. But other times it can be like, this is offered and then all of a sudden that opportunity just like slips through your fingers. So there may be something like impermanent about certain opportunities that come through, or they're like time pressured, there's conditions on it which involve you making, like saying yes or no very quickly, or signing contracts very quickly. Okay, so with collaborations and business partners, you could go into business with another person. Maybe this happens quite quickly, or it could involve something Uranian in nature, science, inventions, innovations, technology, transport, cars, trains, yeah, anything to do with online activity, social media, if I didn't say that already, as well as content creation. And you know, the 7th house also rules over friendships. So this can see you making friends like out of nowhere. And also certain friendships can just end and fall by the wayside. But also particular friends may just like suddenly come up online again, because as someone who has Venus exactly opposite Uranus, Venus representing friendships, I can tell you now that sometimes, you know, friendships may kind of just fizzle out, and then all of a sudden years later I'm catching up with this person again or talking with this person again. But what I will say for Uranus in the 7th house, even as a transit, is that if you've like made a very conscious decision to end something, then usually Uranus won't bring it back. But if it's like there was no end to our friendship or to this relationship, then yes, Uranus can bring it online. I hope that that makes sense. Lastly, with this transit, the 7th house does rule over promises. So this can indicate making promises quickly, breaking promises quickly, or unexpectedly. If you're a Sagittarius sun or rising, yes, there can be lots of ups and downs and unpredictability when it comes to clients, co-workers, contracts and business opportunities. I really do think that this on the whole is going to be a positive transit. And I know it's hard to say that, but hear me out. It's because Uranus is trining Pluto this entire time. Okay. And it's also sextiling Neptune this entire time. So Pluto's support and Neptune's support indicates that what's happening in your life is happening for a higher purpose, for a divine reason, and in divine timing. So anyway, yes, if you're a Sagittarius sun, you know, you'll have to capitalize on these opportunities when they come up. But again, contracts can end abruptly, or perhaps you're ending certain contracts in order to pursue new ones. Also, this can indicate traveling for work, and this could come up sort of out of the blue or with not much time to prepare. If you're a Sagittarius moon, your property and living circumstances can change on a dime because Uranus is opposite you. Again, you do want to look at when is Uranus exactly opposite your moon, okay? On a different note, this is a transit that can indicate you getting pregnant, but to me, this would be either via IVF, adoption, fostering children, or it happens very unexpectedly. Okay, so, and maybe you're even having twins because Uranus is in Gemini after all. So you may find out that you're going to be expanding a family. Maybe this is a surprise to you if you're not expecting it, or you find out you're going to be a grandparent and again, wasn't expecting it, very surprised. And also changes to your relationship status can happen swiftly and or unexpectedly. So for example, you were just like casually seeing someone, now all of a sudden you're exclusive, or you decide to get married and there's not much notice, or it all happens quite spontaneously. And if you're a Sagittarius rising, of course, all of the above can apply. Now, on the 7th or 8th of July, depending where you live in the world, Uranus is going to enter the sign of Gemini for the first time in 84 years. So this is a new nearly 8-year-long cycle, or let's say transit, that is starting, and Uranus will only spend a few months in Gemini in 2025, then it will retrograde back into Taurus, and it will be re-entering Gemini again at the end of April in 2026. So Uranus will only get up to 1 degrees Gemini in 2025. In any case, this is not a major aspect that it is making to you. This is a quincunx, or an in conjunction. All right. So in terms of how this transit can play out for you. The sixth house rules over work. So during this time, your work life can be, let's say your work schedule can be on and off. Okay, so you may be a contract worker, a freelancer, or maybe you own your own business, or you do, I've got a friend who's a Capricorn rising and she does emergency teaching. I forget the name of it, but anyway, it's probably different in different countries. But anyway, you can be called in to cover shifts. So this transit is beneficial for people or individuals who work at jobs or in industries where there's roster work or shift work and where there's sort of no super set schedule or fixed structure to your working life. So some of you can experience new job opportunities that come up during this period of time. They can come about suddenly and spontaneously. Maybe new jobs that come along involve you having to make snap decisions on the spot with not a lot of time to consider your options. On a different note, with existing jobs, you may quit these unexpectedly, or you may just put them on hold, put them on pause. Of course, this can indicate job insecurity at certain times, but just know that this is a nearly 8-year-long transit, so it doesn't mean that you'll definitely experience a change of jobs during this time. It could be that your company undergoes a number of changes in terms of how it's structured, or perhaps your day-to-day work that you do may shift. This is a high-level indicator of having multiple jobs. So maybe you have a few different jobs or things that you do and you have to juggle these responsibilities. The sixth house rules over day-to-day work routines as well as your day-to-day schedules as it is. So when it comes to your work life, you may just find that there really isn't much structure. It's difficult to stick to a schedule. Maybe your hours change often, or your days, or you're just bouncing around from job to job during this period of time. And maybe you like that, especially if you're a freelancer, an entrepreneur, or a contract worker. This could indicate that you may be entering into a period of your life where you're self-employed. Okay, that's definitely a way that this transit could play out. As someone who is personally self-employed, I can tell you that every day is different. Every week is different, and so maybe this is indicative of you working for yourself, or again being a freelancer, and so you determine your own hours, and maybe you find it hard to stick to a schedule, or maybe you just don't even like schedules. So on a different note, the sixth house rules over pets, so this could indicate animals and pets coming into your life unexpectedly and randomly. The sixth house rules over your daily habits and routines. So in general, even with work aside, it can be very hard to stick to a routine during this period of time. And also Uranus rules over your second house. So this could indicate that you may have to change your diet. And it could be like unexpectedly, or you maybe have to action this immediately. So for some of you, it could be because something comes up. For example, you're like, oh, I'm allergic to dairy or to gluten. And so, you just have to change your diet then and there. For others of you, it could be that suddenly you decide that you want to be vegetarian or vegan, or go back to eating meat, just as an example. On a different note, the sixth house rules over health and also exercise. So for some of you, by the way, you could quit certain addictions, and this could be cold turkey overnight. Uranus just removes things from your life instantly. So it could be anything, smoking, vaping, etc., just as an example. But with health and exercise, again, it can be very hard for you to be consistent with your health regime and your exercise regime. And so it would be best if you can just accept that maybe you're going to be going to the gym at different times every day or different days every week, and just doing what you can when you can. Now, the 6th house is the house which represents conflicts. So with Uranus going through your 6th house, they can arise suddenly, but they can also dissipate just as quickly. And you know, again, this is a really long transit, so there's no point really going into the nitty-gritty details. But let's just say if you're a Capricorn sun and rising, this is indicative of changes to your work circumstances as well as your work environment, work contracts, perhaps legal matters, and also, you know, your health and exercise regime. If you're a Capricorn moon or rising, this can indicate that there may be ups and downs when it comes to your mental and emotional health. But I do want to take a moment to say that Uranus will be making positive aspects to both Neptune and Pluto for the entire nearly 8-year-long transit. And for about 2.5 years, it will be making a sextile to Saturn in Aries. So this is supportive when it comes to not just emotional and mental health, but also physical health as well. So if things come up during this time, you know, these longer standing aspects that Uranus makes is supportive of being able to overcome health niggles or ailments that may come up. Okay, so again, if you're a Capricorn moon or rising, there may be legal matters that do involve property or perhaps family, and also it can be harder for you to maintain certain habits and routines. And also this transit will very much relate to how you nourish yourself in terms of food, self-care, and sleep. So you may have to work a bit harder to make sure you're getting adequate sleep and also, you know, the right nutrients in your body as well. Now, on the 7th or 8th of July, depending where you live in the world, Uranus is going to enter the sign of Gemini for the first time in 84 years. So it's going to be transiting your 5th house. And this is a new 8-year cycle that is starting. But in saying that, Uranus will only spend a few months in your 5th house in Gemini in 2025, because on the 8th of November, it will retrograde back to the sign of Taurus, but it will re-enter Gemini once more at the end of April in 2026. So, couple of things. First, Uranus is one of your ruling planets, the other one being Saturn. So the activity of Uranus is very important because it indicates changes and areas of focus that are shifting for you personally. So in 2025, Uranus will only get up to 1 degrees Aquarius, which means that the Aquarians who will experience the trine during 2025 will be Aquarius, Sun, Moon, and Risings between 0 and about 3 or 4 degrees. So if you're an Aquarius Sun, this will be those of you born in the first 4 to 5 days of Aquarius season. So the 5th house rules over love, romance, children, owning your own business, your creative hobbies, passions, interests, and projects, as well as your confidence, your what brings you joy and what brings you happiness. So ultimately, with Uranus trining you, this is positive in the sense that the energy of a trine is beneficial, it's harmonious, it brings blessings into your life, and it makes things easier. So no matter whether you're an early born Aquarius or early degree or late degree or mid degree, to no longer have Uranus squaring you in Taurus means that certain upheaval, emotional upheaval in your life can finally be drawing to a close as Uranus starts to trine you. Okay, so this can see you feeling creative, coming unstuck creatively. This can see you experiencing exciting downloads of information when it comes to creative ideas and your hobbies and your passions and your interests. And in terms of breaking it down, as I like to do, with love and romance, if you're single, or not like exclusive with another person, this can see you experiencing falling for someone like that. It can even be love at first sight. Aquarius rules over electricity, so it can just be like, something moving through your body and you're like, oh my God, this is my person. Or perhaps romantic interests happen fast and unexpectedly during this period of time. Again, you'll want to look at when is Uranus actually trining your rising sun or moon. Nevertheless, because Uranus rules over rebellion, but also like weirdness and eccentricity. I mean, you guys, Aquarians yourselves, maybe you're surprised by whom you fall for. Okay, maybe they're just a total square, just like total normie, and that's not your normal style, and you're just like, oh, like, I can't believe this is who I'm in love with, but there you are. Or perhaps who you're interested in romantically, other people deem unusual or quirky by like your usual standards or whatever. So on a different note, you can take things to the next level romantically very, very quickly. So for example, maybe you haven't known each other for very long, but suddenly you're going on a holiday together, or getting married, or buying a house, or having a kid, or, you've been on 2 dates and you're like, hey mom, like meet Shelly. I don't know, just made up that name. So on a different note, if you are in a relationship, this can be a time where the spark comes back into your life, especially if you feel like you've been in a rut. So it can be an exciting time. Maybe your partner's keeping you on your toes, or maybe you're keeping them on their toes. To be fair, because it is Uranus, this can still come with unexpected ups and downs and twists and turns in your romantic and dating life. And, it could even be because like you and your partner are maybe at different stages. So for example, maybe you're like, hey, like, I love you, let's get married, or I want to marry you someday, I want to have kids with you, and they're like, chillax, we don't know each other that well, but then maybe it ends up happening anyway. So ultimately, this is your own ruling planet that is trining you. So on the whole, this transit will be easier for you to handle than you might otherwise think, or than it would be for perhaps someone who is who's having this transit who's not an Aquarius. In any case, Uranus is making positive, harmonious aspects to Pluto for the entire time. Okay, so it's trining Pluto the whole time. It's sextiling Neptune the whole time. And for Saturn, it will sextile Saturn for about 2+ years of Uranus's transit through Gemini. So to be fair, maybe with love and romance, it can be on and off, up and down, having to spend time apart. But like I said, I do think that with these positive aspects to Pluto, Neptune, and for part of the time Saturn, I think this portends positive things when it comes to your love and romantic life. So the 5th house also rules over children. This can see you changing your mind about whether you want kids or not. And if that's the case, this is like a big change of mind, a big 180. So if you were like, I hate kids, I never want to have kids, or not you hate them, but they're just like not for me, with this transit, you might just suddenly have an overwhelming desire to have a family in one way or another, like however that comes about. For others of you, be a surprise pregnancy, or your partner's getting pregnant and you're like, it wasn't planned, or it's earlier than what you would have thought. Maybe you're becoming a parent in a non-conventional way, the Aquarian way. Say that because Aquarians are, you know, historically speaking, non-conventional. So maybe you are becoming a step parent, a godparent, a guardian, adopting, fostering, or you could be exploring your options when it comes to IVF and surrogacy. You yourself may be a surrogate, or you may be donating your sperm. That's another way that this could play out. So the fifth house rules over your children. So Uranus going through your fifth house could indicate that your child is becoming like sort of weird and wacky. They're going through like a weirdo phase in their life, or maybe they're more rebellious or more experimental, or their behavior could just be very, very unpredictable. And look, to be fair, there could be some kind of big shock or surprise that occurs in their life. And it could be like that maybe they quit school or college, or they go through an unexpected breakup, or perhaps they get pregnant. Maybe this is a surprise for you, or they get into a relationship and you're like, oh, like I, you know, didn't think you wanted to be in a relationship right now, or the person that they're with could be surprising to you. The fifth house rules over owning your own business. So this could see opportunities coming up randomly and out of the blue. So maybe this is like a business idea or a business proposition, and things could take off quite quickly, maybe go viral. You could experience a lot of success. To be honest, this could indicate closing down your business. And maybe this is a surprise, or this happens quite abruptly, or you just take an unceremonious, untimely, or unplanned pause or break from your own business. Okay, so this is a time where you can have lots of ideas for creative projects, exciting downloads of information. Maybe you'll start writing a book, or you have an idea for what you would want to write a book on. You could be interested in lots of unusual things, hobbies, passions, and it's just like, you know, they're very Uranian in nature. Maybe they're not unusual. Maybe it's astrology or science or technology, AI, robotics, anything to do with engineering. You know, these are all Uranian concepts, anything to do with outer space, etc. And also the fifth house rules over being in the spotlight. So this can indicate opportunities that come up that, you know, relate to acting, comedy, athletic or sporting performances, politics, music performances, or maybe like reality TV. I feel like that would be a very Uranus in Gemini transit. I would say, because the fifth house rules over gambling, and you do have North Node transiting your second house, to be careful about the risks that you take. Uranus is very unpredictable. Can you win big? Yes. Can you lose big? Also yes. So, you know, I wouldn't become overly confident if you are on a winning streak. Okay, so in terms of if you're an Aquarius sun or rising, this can indicate starting your own business, feeling really creative, transforming your career somehow, moving into the spotlight with your career, or having more success if you do own your own business. Even if it's not related to work, if you're an Aquarius sun or rising, you could just find hobbies or passions that you are just so, for want of a better term, passionate about and excited about. And if you are an Aquarius rising or moon, then, you know, this can reflect on your relationships in terms of romantically, children, love, romance, etc., etc. And also just feeling more happy, feeling more confident, no matter whether you're rising sun or moon. So on the 7th or the 8th of July, depending where you live in the world, Uranus will enter the sign of Gemini in your 4th house for the first time in 84 years. It'll be there for a few months until the 8th of November in 2025, at which point it will retrograde back into Taurus in your 3rd house. And then it will re-enter Gemini once more in late April of 2026. And this is about an 8-year-long transit. So Uranus will only get up to 1 degrees Gemini before it does retrograde back, which means that those of you who experience Uranus squaring you will only be those of you between about 0 and 5 degrees. If you're a Pisces sun, this means that you are born in the first 6 days of Pisces season. So Uranus transiting your 4th house can indicate that there are going to be a number of, let's say, changes to your property, your living circumstances, as well as changes to long-held family dynamics. So this can see you maybe buying, selling, relocating, or having to vacate quickly, or in some instances abruptly and without prior warning. I'm not suggesting that this will be the case over the course of the whole 8-year period. It's more like when Uranus is directly squaring you, let's say. So you'll want to look to see when Uranus is making an exact square to you. In any case, this can see there being changes to your property situation and your living circumstances, or to life as you know it, especially if it's like, okay, you've lived in this house for 10 years and now all of a sudden you're moving out. Don't get me wrong, for some of you this is planned. For some of you this will very much be your decision, right? But it doesn't change the fact that if you've lived your life a certain way for that length of time, that it's not going to be without certain teething issues or just things that you have to adapt to, essentially. So it could require fast-paced change from you. I'll just shoot out a few examples, right? Maybe you've been looking to buy a property for a while, and something just comes up, or a real estate agent contacts you and is like, hey, I know you're looking for a property just like this, but you need to put an offer in within 48 hours because otherwise it's going out, to be advertised in the public. Or perhaps there is an opportunity for you to relocate interstate or abroad, and even if it's like all paid for by your work, it's like, here's $10,000 to relocate. Again, it can be like, oh my God, I have to change my life really, really quickly, and I'm going to have to tell people that I live with, or notify my landlord or my family, etc. So again, there can just be these big changes to your property and living circumstances, which even if you're all for these exciting moves and changes, it's just like, oh my God, like my life is going to change in such a big way. Okay, so on a different note, people may just be surprised by the decisions and the actions that you're taking. If you're telling family or friends or loved ones that you're going to be, moving overseas to be with the love of your life, then maybe they're just like, who is this person? Or, but you've lived here for so many years, what are you going to do over there? You know what I mean? So with living circumstances, this can indicate someone moving out really quick, someone moving in really quick, changes in terms of like tenants, who's with you in your property, or perhaps you're telling someone that you're moving and it just feels to them like there's very little notice. To be fair, this can indicate someone reacting badly to these changes just because it's like a bit of a shock. With my family, when I told them that I was moving interstate, there were, of course, lots of mixed feelings, because ultimately if you're moving away from your family, then they're thinking, okay, well, when am I going to see you again? Or how often am I going to get to see you? And obviously it's like a disruption to your existing dynamics with them, as in terms of family. So on a different note, this can indicate that relationships with family members can be on and off. Okay, so, there may be certain family members where you're really close one minute and then not that close other times. To be honest, this particular interpretation does make a lot of sense if one of you is relocating elsewhere. P.S. This doesn't have to be you. It could be that your family is like your parents are like, listen, we're gonna go and buy a caravan and drive around Australia, or we're moving to Europe, or we're moving to Australia. Obviously, I'm in Australia, so hence the references, right? So it could be that you find this to be really surprising, or, you know, maybe your child is moving abroad, or they're moving out of the home, and even if they're only moving like 20 minutes away, maybe, you know, they've only just turned 18 and you're like, oh, I thought you would live here for another 5 years, etc., etc., etc. So some of you could find out that you're going to be a parent or a grandparent, and the news could be very surprising. Maybe it's a surprise pregnancy, or maybe you just weren't expecting to, you know, become a grandparent at this point in your life for one reason or another. Uranus going through your 4th house can indicate that you are going down the IVF route, or perhaps using a surrogate, or maybe being a surrogate for someone else, you know, during this period of time. And ultimately, the 4th house does represent your sense of security and life as you know it, in terms of what you're used to. So, you know, I don't want to sugarcoat things. Uranus going through the 4th house can be quite disruptive to this. So there are just changes and things that you want to adapt to, or other people who need to adapt to these changes that you're making within your life. And maybe you're just surrounding yourself with, or you're going to be living in a completely different environment. Okay, with Uranus in the 4th house, maybe this is like living in a big community, or high-rise apartments, or you know, somewhere where I don't know, it's sort of like the people that are there are very community focused, which is very Uranus in nature. Or there could just be like community style living, or maybe it's just people who are kind of unconventional, a bit rebellious, a bit out there. Fortunately, Uranus is trining Pluto in Aquarius in your 12th house for its entire time in the sign of Gemini. So this will help you with the adjustment. I see this as indicating that this is your vision for your future. You want this, you're making this change. You know, where it's not so much that other people are making changes. I really think that, you know, Jupiter has like laid this foundation for you by transiting your 4th house in Gemini. So you've been probably having downloads and visions about where you want to live, who you want to live with, maybe relocating interstate or internationally, and then Uranus is coming in and maybe making this happen sooner than you thought, or just, you know, via means and ways where you were like, okay, I wanted this, but I wasn't expecting it to happen like this quick or in this way, if that makes sense. Uranus will also be sextiling Neptune in Aries in your 2nd house for the entire time. This is your chart ruler, you guys, which means that, or suggests that these changes are ones you're making. This is your goal. This is at your behest. You're the judge, jury, and the executioner. You're the one making these important decisions, and people are adjusting to your decisions, and you're just like, too bad. You know, with the North Node going through Pisces in your 1st house, I just see this as you're wanting to go out there, see the world, experiment, put yourself first, and not have to put other people first. And maybe you've been doing that for far too long. And so 2025 is your time to just take the bull by the horns and, you know, make this life your own. You know, you're going to be done with being a passenger in your own life and being passive. And this is what Neptune has kind of been about through, you know, with Neptune going through Pisces for pretty much the last 14 years. It's required you to adapt to the whims and will of other people and just react and respond and surrender and accept. Whereas now you're going to be a lot more in control, especially after Neptune leaves the sign of Pisces. So these changes that come through when it comes to family and property and real estate and where you live, etc., could come via exciting proposals, you know, opportunities that come your way that you feel are too good to be true. And for part of this transit, Saturn will also sextile Saturn in Aries in your 2nd house, which will act as a grounding force and help you to stay the course. Didn't mean to rhyme there. Stay the course and just, you know, work towards building this future for yourself. So if you're a Pisces sun, there can be unexpected changes that come through with career and big goals for your future. Maybe these are influenced by relationships or family dynamics, or, you know, your property and living circumstances, or there are big opportunities career-wise that come through that affect your family that you're taking. You know, you're taking these opportunities, or maybe making important decisions on behalf of your family. There may be unexpected decisions. When I say unexpected, it's like other people don't expect them, or you're like, oh, I didn't realize I had to act on this now, or that I would have such little time, etc., etc. If you're a Pisces moon, this can indicate that there may be big shifts when it comes to where you live, whom you live with, who lives with you, your personal values, your self-worth, your, like, what brings you emotional security, and certainly relationship dynamics with people that you live with and your immediate family members. Okay, if you're a Pisces rising, again, no distinction, just take it as it resonates. Even if you're a Pisces sun or moon, you know, if this interpretation works for you, then just go with it, okay?